Hi and welcome to another tutorial from Hans. Today we're looking at the handwritten text intro tutorial itself. So I have this background that we have here in Blender. I'm going to separate this tutorial into two parts. We're going to take a look at the Monoline handwritten type font creation, right? That's with the handwriting effect with just a monoline curve using the build modifier. And the other part is just going to look at the font itself. How would you fill in animate a font as if it was handwritten? So a specific font versus just the monoline. So let's first look at the monoline. I'm going to go over to Inkscape now. Let's go ahead and go to our Inkscape here. And we have a handwritten text here that I just jimmied up here and corrected in Inkscape. And I'll have it in white here because we're going to trace over. So you're going to pick your favorite vector illustration program of choice. You can do this in Blender, but we're going to do the other part of this, the second part of the tutorial in Blender, so you can see both ways. Right, I got my drawing tablet here, so I'll just GIF through this, and you're going to select your Bezier tool, right, Illustrator, Inkscape, Corel Draw, whichever one that you prefer, or others, you know. And then with your Bezier tool, you're simply just going to draw the strokes in and draw them in the order that you think that if you are writing these, right, you would draw them. Also, while you're drawing them, you want to try your best to just keep the strokes in the middle, so that helps you to get the better results, you know, as you go into Blender. The neater you do the work here is the better it is for you when you reach Blender to do the build modifier. I'm kind of just running through this because this is a tutorial, but I did want to go through and kind of just show you exactly what I do. All I'm doing is using the Bezier tool and just tracing out the font. And by mono thickness, I mean that the stroke of this font, of this hand lettering that you see here, is uniform throughout. There's no dips or changes in the size of the stroke. Each stroke that's made to create each character is relatively the same width. If you look here, we can see that, I'll say on the R specifically, that the width between this R and the width size of the stem of the R is of different thickness. So a monoline doesn't have that. A monoline is typically even thickness throughout all characters that it seeks to represent in its font. And monoline is actually really excellent for handwritten fonts. Alright, but in case you wanted to go a bit further with the handwriting in Blender, then we're gonna do the section here where we actually imitate the way a natural font is, right? A font that's not necessarily monoline, and how we make it look like it's handwritten. Cool. I'm just going to go through this and go through. Just use a line to represent the dot, and we just have the E and the N left. Good. Like I said, I'm zipping through this because it's a tutorial, but you'll have more time to sort of just take your time and go through this and methodically just make sure it's as accurate as possible. Alright, cool. Alright, when we reach the second part, we'll revisit Inkscape to finish this next part of it, but for now, you know, we're just going to go ahead and select all of these black that we have here. Take a look, we have everything. Nope, let's just select them one by one now. And then once we have all of these put together, we just have to simply just export it as an SVG. This is just, we can just delete all of these temporarily and save as an SVG. You can just say handwriting .svg, and then we're ready to move on to the Blender part of this tutorial. Okay, let's go over to File, and we're just going to import SVG as grease pencil, and we're just going to import the handwriting that we just did. Now, because I'm on the Cartesian plane axis, that's where we press 7 and then set the camera to the viewpoint of 7 with Control Alt and 0. I'll have to hit RX and -90 to get my text to look straight. But this is essentially what we did a little while ago. Alright, really nice. It's been set up here, and it has a little bit of thickness here. In most instances it won't come with thickness, but ours does have some thickness. What we can do here is go to the thickness scale in the data properties for the grease pencil with this selected, and we can increase the thickness scale of this to get it to the original thickness of the original text. Once we have that, the next step is relatively simple. We're going to go to modifiers. I'm going to add a build modifier. Good. Now we're not going to see anything happen with the build modifier more than the text disappear, and that's because when we're in the write mode, it will automatically apply the build modifier. So we'll have to play the timeline to see it play, and currently it's on number of frames, so it's going to play over 100 frames. Let's take a look. Cool. We see it's handwritten and it's looking really nice. Right, if we want to, we don't just have to operate by the frames or the delay. We can go ahead and change it by, say, percentage factor, and we can add keyframes that represent the percentage. So let's go ahead and add one keyframe for 0, one for 28, and then one last one for 60. See what that looks like. Good. And you can play about with this all you want to. Good. So have it start out fast and then move slow, or have it start slow and end fast. Good. And we have a lot of flexibility of how we use it, right? We can also look at the perceived natural drawing speed as well to play about with, and essentially you've got that option. You can also go into sequential mode and make it concurrent instead of sequential, as in one stroke on the other, and have all strokes animate together. Cool. Alright. And we can also have additive, but in this instance additive is not going to add any change. It's just going to look very similar to congruent, or I say not to congruent, but to the sequential. Right, but there are instances where it could be useful. Right, you can also specify a custom range for the frames as well. You can add fade, and you can add influence. Cool. So, and the influencer says that we only want the build modifier on a certain layer, and the fade talks about how quickly or how slowly the effect fades in. Right, and that's the options that we have for the handwritten text with the monoline. Let's move over to the font, handwritten font part of it. Right, cool. Okay, so we're in Inkscape again, and we're looking at the font handwritten text intro part of this. So this is when you want to fill in the space between a font, right? Similar to this. So what we have to do here is that we have to get our font. I'm in Inkscape, but you can also do this in Illustrator and other vector programs if you are not familiar with Inkscape, though I use Inkscape. Cool, so we have this here. We're going to go to path here. I'm going to convert this object to path, and what this will do will change every character here to a path, and it will connect naturally all of the letters into one path subgroup. So now we have the text intro subgroup set up. We don't want to change that. We like this. This is how we want it. We're going to go ahead and duplicate this. Let's give the one behind a different color, and let's put this to the back. Good. Then we're going to go to path. I'm going to go to dynamic offset. So when you go ahead and just double click the text with the dynamic offset, we can pull this diamond here, and what that's going to do is that's going to produce a outsetted outline for the text here, and this is exactly what we want. Then we're going to when we have given it sufficient space, we're just going to go ahead and convert it to a path. We can do that by going to path, object to path, and then we're going to go ahead and select our orange text and our black text. Then we're going to go path and difference, and that creates our text intro mask. So we're going to need a mask when doing this to help us to do the handwriting effect. And just like the handwritten type here, we're just going to export this as an SVG and then come back into Blender. Okay then, so we're in Blender now, and I'm looking at the handwritten text that we entered in for the last step. We're just going to go ahead and add this as a SVG that's regular, not grease pencil. And the reason is that if we import this as a grease pencil object, we're going to get a problem that will be difficult to fix for this tutorial. So let's go ahead and import the mask that we created in grease pencil to show you. Because I'm on the Cartesian plane, I'll have to rotate by negative 90 on the x-axis. And we're just going to use G to move this. And we notice that the text that we created the outline for, and the middle was transparent, has been filled in. What grease pencil does is that it looks for any enclosed shape, and the enclosed shape it represents as a shape of its own. So if we go ahead and select the stroke over the curve points, we can see that it doesn't cut the shape out, it just has it as a separate object here, and that's problematic for what we want to do. So it's better that we import the mask as a regular SVG. So let's go ahead and just do that. File, import SVG regular, and we're going to search for text intro here. Cool. And when we import as an SVG regular, it always goes to the center of the canvas and is very small, so anything that's over the center of the canvas will obscure it. I'm going to select the handwriting, and I'm going to select the background. I'm just going to press H on the keyboard to hide it. You can see our text here. Let's go ahead and move it on the Z a bit and scale it up. Cool. Then we're going to hit Alt and H to bring back the text that we had before. Good. Let's place it in the position that we want. I'm going to give it a bit of GY, and we can scale it in slightly. Cool. So we have our handwritten text, and we also have our text intro, and they're both on similar Z planes. So what we want to do now is that we want to go and create an empty grease pencil object. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my cursor at the beginning, at the bottom of the T here. I'm going to add a grease pencil, but it's going to be blank. Then we're going to go and navigate to the draw and select draw mode, and we're going to select the double bended curve, right? Because I think this is best to complete the text, right? For any shape that we will present ourselves, that the characters will have to take on. So we're just going to do the same thing that we did in Inkscape, where we use the Bezier tool to draw out the handwriting text, and I'm going to use the Bezier tool to draw out the text for this text intro. So let's go ahead. You want to try and get it in the center as much as possible. Also, you don't have to go straight to the edge for this, because of the thickness that's going to be added to the stroke, it will naturally go over the edge. So you want to just give it a bit of space. That may not stop you from overlapping the or for going past the actual mask, which is the outline, but at the very least it will make sure that it will help or make your work a lot less, right, when you have to go and do the edits. So just bring it to the edge of it. You don't have to bring it all the way. Right, now naturally you're going to take your time and go through this smoothly. I'm only going through it quickly because this is a tutorial. What you're going to be using, the double curve, and you're going to be using E to extrude when you want to extrude on this curve. You're going to use the yellow nodes to decrease the size, and you're going to use the blue nodes to bend if you need to bend the outline itself, and you're going to use enter to set the outline. Right? I'll move on to the next one. So we're just going to use the cross here to draw it out. Good. If you want to extend or extrude the line, you're going to press E, and if you want to bend the line, you're going to use the blue nodes. If you want to adjust the line that we've just created, we're going to use the yellow nodes here. And again, try your best to keep it in the center as much as possible. Alright, don't watch my lack of neatness, right, or care to attention of detail here. It's only because I have a tutorial here that I'm doing it as fast as I am. Right, but you will have more time to be precise and to make sure that you get the result that you're looking for. I find that if you keep the stroke in the center, you get the best results, the center of the characters, right? And you also have to do the least amount of work. Cool. Let's go ahead and do this T, R, and O, and we finish. Right, but I just wanted to make sure that I showed you how to do this in Blender. You can do it in Blender. It's just that I find that Inkscape tools for Bezier work is just more intuitive, and because Inkscape is designed for that sort of thing. If you draw a line in the beginning and it's not looking alright, you can press exit on your keyboard to start again. Let's go ahead and just add this. Right, so that's why I prefer over, say, Blender's tools. I prefer the Bezier in Inkscape for that reason. It's more intuitive and it's a bit more forgiving, right? Because if you make a mistake here, it's more difficult. Also, there are small things that I don't know how to do in Grease Pencil yet. When I'm drawing these lines, I don't know how to zoom in. Albeit, I don't know if there's a way to zoom in. Right, but I don't know how to do it, so I typically zoom in first and then start the line after. I know there's some shortcut keys that you can access, but I don't know them as yet. You can see here, this is already way too far. I can just cut this a bit. Because we're gonna increase the size a bit, so you can cut it. Let's go ahead and do the O. Go back to the draw mode. You have to go to edit mode to delete points. Make sure that you've selected your points, it's the curve points, and you're not on stroke. And go ahead and just curve this round using the blue nodes. Move the endpoints of the stroke using the yellow nodes, and use E to extrude. And also make sure you try to get in the center and that you're following the path where you think the text is going to be handwritten in. So now that we've done this and this looks semi-okay, I'm just going to go ahead and take off use lights here, and we're going to go to the data tab. We're going to go down to the thickness scale. I'm going to increase the thickness scale here. I'm going to increase it until it covers the mask as best as possible for the text. We can see here it covers most text here except for the X. What we can do here then is just simply press E and extrude and fill in the spaces here that are not covered. Good, and we have our text here ready to be outlined. So the only thing here is that we have this black outline that's masking the text, but it's not really doing a job as a mask because it's black and we can see it. So what we're going to do is that we're going to use a texture mask. This is the first time I've used texture mask in a Blender tutorial, outside of the 3 types of masks that I did 2 tutorials back. Right, that tutorial is the first time I've gone over it, and this tutorial is the first time I've done it in a actual project for you to see. So this is how we apply a texture mask here. So all we're going to do here is come out of Grease Pencil, go to object mode. We're going to select our mask here. Let's just call it text intro mask just for the sake. You should name your objects as much as possible. Here, good, the text intro mask, and we can see that it's a bit connected to the background here. So I just want to go ahead and lift this up on the Z a bit. I'm going to parent this also to this as well. Key transform. So what we can do here now is that we're going to select this black outline. We're going to select the background, and we're just going to go ahead and hit Ctrl and L, and I'm going to link the materials. Cool. As we link the materials here, we see that even though we've linked them, we're getting these slightly awkward results here where the text is see-through and it's not showing properly. So what this is an indication of is that we have alpha blend enabled. So what we want to do is go to blend mode, alpha blend, and change this to opaque, right? And that's just fine. It will work much better once you do that. We see that it looks just fine. The only thing is that this is not taking on the exact coordinates of the background that we've linked it to, and that's easily fixed. So we're going to go over to the shading tab, and we're going to go over where we have background here and the material output. This is where we have our image texture. We're going to add some coordinates. So let's go ahead and look for texture coordinate, and to make it so that these two have the same texture coordinates, we're going to go ahead and use window, and that's the window of the camera. Good. And with this we can see that the text is perfectly masked. So if we move it around now, it takes on the background color, and we don't have any problems in where we place it, right, outside of the thickness showing from behind. Cool. So with that now, we have our text mask, and we can apply the same build modifier we did to the handwritten text. Let's go ahead and go to the, make sure use lights is turned off. Let's go ahead and go to the modifiers tab. Let's add a build modifier. Cool. And it disappears because it's going to start at the beginning of the frame, or we have it at frame 184, but we're going to move this to frame 0. Good. And we see that the text is drawing in itself. Cool. And all we have to do now is just play about with the settings in the build modifier the same way we did with the handwritten text. We can use a lower frame count. Let's just use percentage for now. Cool. And I'm just going to go ahead and wait till this fills in, and then as this is filling in this last part, we're going to have it grow from 0 to 100 basically, or 1. Yeah. And have them key in right after each other. Cool. And that is our handwritten text tutorial. We've taken a look at both ways. If we just use a mono thickness, and if we also just want to do it for just a text itself, we looked at the two ways that we can do this right in Blender. And I think this is a whole rounded look into how to do handwriting text in its entirety in Blender. So if you enjoyed this tutorial, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, be sure to ask. I'll do my best to answer them once I'm capable and able. And also, if you have any commendations or you have any recommendations on how you can do things better, please leave that in the tutorial in the comment section also. I would greatly appreciate that contribution, and I look forward to hearing from you. So, until I see you again with another tutorial, get up and design a new dawn. Later.